Raising women's voices, one story at a time. Welcome to the She Said Project podcast. It's a live one here today on the She Said Project podcast. I am so excited to be here in the studio. I'm Jenette, your host, national director. That's what she said, the She Said Project, here in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, with my friend, my beautiful friend and co-host, Kerry Rosso.
Hi, Jeanette Jersey.
Hi, Kerry.
It's so good to see you. And you all can't see it, but I got to tell you, your hair is on point today. You always have a strong hair game, but everyone should just be able to know this is fabulous.
It's because my hair is 90% of my personality. Like, seriously, if you know me. I have to give credit. I came from the salon today.
Yep.
So
flip it like you got it.
This is not like I woke up like this. Today was hair day, which is,
fabulous.
Only every few months. So you caught a good one. Too bad our friends are just listening today and they can't get all this gloriousness. They're going to have to trust my voice and not my hair.
Well, I will soak it all up. I might have to come over there and brush it.
Oh, dear. So we have a treat for our listeners today. We get to chat with one of the incredible women who appeared on stage, and That's What She Said, like we do. Our friend today appeared in the Bloomington-Normal show recently in the fall of 2023. And let me tell you a little bit about Luisa Gomez. I met Luisa. She was actually volunteering at one of our That's What Teens Say weekends in Peoria.
Oh,
yes.
my goodness.
Yes.
What?
So she and I worked one of the teen weekends when we launched in Peoria, and we met. It was complete fate, I'm telling you. And you know when you meet someone, Kerry, and you're like, this woman, I got to put her in a show.
Yep, they don't know what hit them.
That is what happened when I met Luisa. It was like fireworks
Instant.
going off, and she had no idea. But I did ask her, and she joined the cast, and some interesting things happened during her time leading up to the show, and it was a bit of a challenging journey for her. So we're going to bring her on the call, and her story turned out, you're looking at me like, oh my goodness, but her story turned out on point. But it took a little bit to get there. And so we're going to bring Luisa on here to tell our listeners a little bit about her journey. So Luisa, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I am doing well today. I am so excited to be on the podcast today. I can't tell you, when I got the invitation, I was like, yes, sign me up, please.
It is wonderful to hear your voice. And meet my friend, Kerry Rosso. Kerry, this is Luisa. And let me tell you, she is a nugget of goodness.
Oh, well, I am so happy to meet you. I was not at that show, but I will say I've seen the video, and let's just start with your outfit. Hello. Wow. Are you a person that like right away you were like, yep, I know what I'm wearing? Or were you still deciding the day of?
Well, actually, to be honest, I had a couple of choices that I had, planned. But there's a little backstory to my outfit. So I recently joined a sorority, the Wonderful Women of Sigma Gamma Rho, founded in 1922 at Butler University.
Hey.
And our sorority colors are royal blue and gold.
Go dogs.
And so it was fitting for me to go up there and represent my sisters while also representing Sigma Gamma Rho. And so it was a story behind that choice of color. And really, even the skirt that I was wearing, it had pearls on it, and we call our founders our 7 pearls. So it's all intertwined, but if you didn't know, you'd think, oh, this is a killer outfit, but it actually was intentional to represent a significant portion of my life.
Oh, now I love it even more. That is awesome. Okay, so it sounds like there's a backstory here, the lead up to the show.
So, yes.
Somebody spill it.
So when Luisa was asked to be in the show, she was very excited. Early on, we go through what our potential topics might be. And Luisa and I had landed on a pretty beautiful story when she was a student. And you had a moment in time, Luisa, and this wasn't your ultimate story, but where you realized your own power of being a Black woman. Remember that story?
Oh, yes. The story that we decided on, Jenette and Kerry, is I was going to talk about how I went back to school full-time at Illinois State University as an undergraduate student. And I made the dedication and the decision to just do those final 2 years to get my bachelor's degree. And in the midst of that, I was able to join a class that was life-changing for me. It was called Black Feminist Thought. And in that class, we explored themes of feminism through practice, through theory. We explored Patricia Hill Collins, Audre Lorde, every powerful Black woman that you could think about. We read their bodies of work. And in that, I was able to not only participate in symposiums for 2 years where I was able to present some of my work, and then the second year to be able to sit on the panel with members of the Black Lives Matter founders, but I also was able to travel to Canada to present my research as to why it's important to have Black feminists on predominantly white campuses. And I was able to present that at the American Sociological Association conference that was held in Montreal, Canada that year. So I could say that that for me was pivotal. You know, I think back to growing up, and I've always been secure in being Black, but I didn't have that, that monolithic, it's like we all have different lives and we all come up, different ways. And I'm an Afro-Latina. My mother's Black. And so she showed me what it was to be a feminist through her actions. And she probably would never have called herself a feminist, but through her actions, she did. And that's what I learned, especially about Black women, is we will do it. We show up in feminine spaces and feminist qualities and practicing. We just don't know the word or the language, that scientific language that's attached to it. But we do it every day, that we wake up and we exist in this world. And so having that opportunity for me, I feel like was a catalyst that just helped me define my voice and my role in this world, and to really empower myself and really understand what that power is as I walk through my intersections.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. So that alone, that would be an amazing story to tell. How did you pivot?
See why that would have been a perfect fit.
Perfect.
While we had all these amazing conversations going, yes, 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 that's what she said is the right platform for this. Tell us, girl. Tell us how you came to this conclusion. Then something.
Life happens.
Life happened. So, Luisa, tell us what happened during our journey with That's What She Said.
Well, like Jenette said, we had settled on the story. We were building it out. I was feeling confident. And I'll just be honest, because I don't believe in not being honest. I'll be transparent. In my head, I said, I'm not going to be the sad story. I'm not going to be the one that has people crying. I said, because we get a lot of that, people, the women bare their souls, they're healed, they're talking about it, but it's very emotional. So in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's not going to be me. Nope.
Famous last words. Famous last words.
Yes. And then my life changed. And what happened in my life was that my ex-husband died unexpectedly at 56 years old. And we share 2 children, and we also share 4 grandchildren. And so here I am in this moment in time, struck with this grief that I didn't, 1, have words for, 2, it was unexpected. And the reason why I call it unexpected grief is because my mother, she transitioned in 2020. And while, you never want anyone to pass away or transition or die, she had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer the year before. So, you just kind of know that when the phone calls become less and less and there's not as much interaction, you kind of prepare yourself a little. It's still grief and it's still heavy, but it's like you kind of know it's expected grief. Mm-hmm. This is something I had never dealt with before. It was an unexpected grief. And even though we had been divorced for almost 10 years, he was a significant portion of my life. We met when I was 17 years old, and he had been in my life all those years. I'm not going to say how old I am now, but it caused me to actually just become paralyzed. I became paralyzed, and I didn't want to do the show. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't know what to do. I was paralyzed in my grief, and that's what happened to me. And so that was the pivotal moment where I had to say, am I going to do this? What does this look like? And it was such a blessing to be working with Jenette because she was able to create that space for me. And there's one moment in time I can specifically think about was, when you're grieving, you don't really want to be around people because you don't want them to, feel your sadness, feel your grief, because we traditionally as a society, we don't do well with grief at all. We don't do well with grief at all. We grieve in private. We give ourselves a timetable on grief. It's all these different things. So just imagine me grieving that hard for a man who was no longer my husband. And I am married now, and I have another child. But it was a very harsh grief. And Jenette invited me to a session, and she said, just come. You don't have to talk. You don't have to do anything. Just come and sit and let us hold that space for you. And when I walked into that room, every single woman just held space for me. And at that time, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep going or not. But that moment, they held space for me. And that's the power of women. And I think we don't even recognize just how powerful we are, no matter what color we are. When we understand each other and we're really supporting each other, holding that space is so important. And her creating that space for me, I will never forget it.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember vividly the phone call when she let me know what had happened. And obviously that is something your world stops. You have to process and take care of things. And we were right in the middle of rehearsals. And I knew she needed time and I knew she needed space. And there was 1 or 2 rehearsals where, she was occupied. And then she called me and she said, I'm not sure if I can do this. And I said, just come. Luisa, I'm right there with you. I can remember exactly where I was, driving my car, having this exact conversation with you. So I remember when you walked into the room that night and I could feel your energy. I could feel the heaviness, and you let me share just enough with the group so that we all understood where you were. And that was the whole point, is come listen to other women's stories. Come hear where they are in their process. If you want to talk, you talk. And if you don't want to talk, you don't talk. But just know we care enough that you are present. And that moment, she said, we're going to move forward, but my story isn't what I think it was going to be. And so that was the evolution of Luisa's story. So, Luisa, with your permission, I think it's time to share the recording with our audience so that they can hear the final version of what you fleshed out with us during the process. And then we can come back and chat some more.
Oh, that sounds great.
Okay. So, friends, I know every person listening right now has experienced grief. And if you haven't, you're gonna. So, here is an opportunity for you to connect, listen, and learn from a woman who has been there. Please enjoy this performance by Luisa Gomez on stage at That's What She Said, Bloomington-Normal 2023, with her story, I Call Bullshit.
Your silence will not save you. Audre Lorde, Sister Outsider, Essays and Speeches. Grief is universal. I bet there's not one person in this audience who hasn't experienced grief. Grief is a shapeshifter, constantly bobbing and weaving like an MMA fighter or boxer. And the last time I checked, your girl is not a trained MMA fighter, nor am I a boxer. Now, don't get it twisted. I have been known to throw these hands back in the day. But I'm proud to say I am reformed. I am no longer that person. I can promise you that you won't get these hands, but I cannot promise you that you won't get some choice words. Not curse words per se, but I will speak up. But for the most part, I let a lot go. That's how I maintain my zen. When it comes to grief, we all grieve. Loss is loss. Loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of a parent, even loss of a relationship. I could go on and on about all the losses we will experience over the course of our lives. But as an Afro-Latina who navigates this world as a Black woman, I have realized that it is a luxury to fully grieve. And I call bullshit. I lost my mother to pancreatic cancer, February 2020. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't miss her. This is an indefinite grief. No one prepares you to live in this world as a motherless child. For me, my mother was the color yellow. A soft yellow, a comforting yellow, a warm yellow, the yellow of the sun after a storm. To this day, I find myself wanting to call her to share my life, to share my joys, to share my frustrations, to share my sorrows. Hey, Mom, guess what? I got the job. Or, hey, Mom, you are not going to believe what baby girl said today. Or even, hey, Mom, guess what? I'm going to be in this amazing show where I get to tell my story. I want to talk to her so much about how my little girl is finding her voice and finding her place in this complex world. Or I'm so damn proud of my two eldest children who continue to teach me and want me to be a better mother every single day. I especially want to share the joy of my grandchildren, and how just the thought of them makes me want to smile. That grief never goes away. It just sits there. It can make me smile at a memory or bring me to my knees sobbing. But now I have a new grief. The grief of losing my ex-husband unexpectedly. To be honest, this is an oppressive grief, an unforeseen grief, and really an inconvenient grief. And this is where I call bullshit. This grief feels like midnight, an opaque purple, the color, the stain of crimson, intense, no sun, no moon, blackness. His death is a foreign grief, a complicated and uncomfortable grief. I had known that man since I was 17 years old. Even though we hadn't been married for 13 years, we were married for almost 20. So yeah, my world was rocked. We had unfinished business. We still had plans. Our children, though they were adults, still needed us. We were co-parenting our grandchildren. Damn it! And I'll never forget my son saying to me, Mom, we lost 25% of our family. Now there's only 3 of us. And that's a void that can't be filled. I had to take a step back and really evaluate this grief, this weight of infinite tears. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't fill the void. I couldn't be 50%. I was 25% of a whole. And yet, in my feeble but honorable attempt to be 50%, my own percentage was dwindling rapidly. Dwindling with each thought, each phone call, each text, each moment of shame, each argument, each memory. I needed help. SOS, yeah, me. I need help. Me? My mental and physical health were almost at 0%. If I didn't get the intervention and guidance I needed to show up for myself, my children, my husband, my grandchildren, and those whom I love, I can honestly say I wouldn't have made it. But while this sounds relatable to others, it felt damn near impossible for me. I could not financially or mentally afford this grief. I was given 3 days leave for the passing of my ex. While that sounds generous, it takes about 5 days to just wake up. But I took those days in like oxygen just to live. No time to grieve, and I call bullshit. Off to work I go, because that's what you have to do, right? No work, no pay, right? That's how life is. If only I could be Scarlett O'Hara and get to think about it tomorrow. But the way my Black life is set up, nope. All of the emotions, everyone's emotions, I absorbed them, and they took me to a dark place, the place that made me question my existence. Because I'm not 50%. A dear sister friend of my tribe, who's a therapist and mentor, heard my silent pleas, and she reached out to me. I asked her about some recommendations for supplements for my mental health. She provided a list, and I'm right there on Amazon, and I placed an order. Those supplements cost me over $100, and I call bullshit. Here I am putting together my own treatment plan because I don't have the luxury to grieve. For real, me. I'm piecing together my healing process, and I call bullshit. But what could I do? I could be proactive. I call my doctor and set up an appointment for a wellness check. And all would be good, right? Nope, not so much so. At my appointment, my doctor handed me those dreaded dry erase mental health cards. You know, the scoring system. As I handed him back my cards, I looked him in the eyes and I said, "This is not pretty." He looked at me. I looked at him. He looked at me again. I looked back at him again. And then he looks at my cards and he says, "Luisa, I have to ask you the questions." I reply, "I know." I also know that I don't have the luxury to take the break I so desperately needed. I list all the factors that keep that dark place at bay. I have a young daughter. I don't abuse drugs or alcohol. And no, I don't have access to firearms. Yes, that's the list. And those are the questions I had to answer. But I could say, he heard me. He saw me. And he offered some relief through medication. And for that, I'm grateful. So maybe just a little less bullshit. Next on my list, because I'm going through my treatment plan, is to secure a therapist. Do y'all know how hard it is to get a therapist to call you back? Right? I call bullshit. Can a sister get on somebody's schedule? Again, my beloved sister recommended a Black woman therapist. As I dialed the number, I felt the same despair and defeat I had felt from all the other calls I had made. She wasn't going to return my call. But lo and behold, she called me back the very next day. I cried the moment she introduced herself, and I know I said thank you repeatedly during our conversation. She saw me. She heard me. So, a little less bullshit. I have a journey ahead of me. This is a story from the wound, not from the scar. I believe grief will always be a scar. And I know that grief will forever be a part of me. I'm not the same person I was yesterday, a month ago, 2 months ago, or 3 years ago. But I know I feel better today than I did yesterday, a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 years ago. As a proud Afro-Latina Black woman, I embody the courage of my ancestors to put on my boots, but heels in this case, and wade through the bullshit and turn it into fertilizer to nourish my soul. I can be 100% for myself, 25 fabulously flawed percent for my 2 eldest children, 33% for my husband and my daughter, and I can be whatever percentage I need to be for my tribe. Mama, he's gone, but I'm calling grief what it is, and I call bullshit.
So you never think when someone is in the depths of grief that they can be so bright, so funny, so charming. And I think it all comes down to life, death, grief, all of it. Life can be ridiculous. All of it, all of the crap we have to go through. And Luisa, you called it, man. You called it what it was. And you made us laugh with you through the tears. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And what I did is I think about the process of leading up to the show. And you work on your story, you tell your story, and then you get on the stage and you tell your story again. And I won't say it becomes like second nature, but it's like you've told the story so many times. And then when you tell it to people who have not heard it, it takes you back. And then you realize, wow, this is big. This is something that people need to talk about. This is something that people might not have words for. But in the moment, you don't realize it until you step off that stage and you start to interact with those. And you're like, wow. I mean, even afterwards, I have people coming up to me and talking to me about it and saying, I remember, and I didn't have words for that. It's kind of like a different space, and I shared that with Jenette. I was like, okay, you do it, you say it, but then when you do it the final time, and then you have to go within these spaces, it brings it all back. Like, wow.
They're hearing it for the first time using my mom brain and thinking, okay, you have your own grief that you're wrestling. And then when you're a mom, now you're not only navigating that space for yourself, you are navigating that space for other loved ones. And especially if it's your child, that's a whole other level of navigating grief.
Yes, that is. And I think for me, yes, I'm grieving and it's hard, but as a mother, that's something I can't fix for my children. That's something I can't take away. That's not something that's in my power. And I just have to make sure that I am taking care of myself the best that I can as I'm processing this grief so that I can show up for them being the best version of myself while they're grieving. That's a very true place to be in. You can teeter one way or the other. And so I have to be intentional in not only my healing, I have to be intentional in how I show up for them.
Wow. It was really moving. We talk a lot about how life is, like Jenette said, ridiculous, and it's all the things. And boy, in one piece, you covered so much. You talked about grief, you called bullshit. It was sort of a roller coaster of all the different feelings we can have through situations like that, and you did it really beautifully.
Kerry and I often reflect on not sharing the story that is so new and so raw because it can be dangerous, it can be harmful, and it can be just too much for the speaker, too much for the audience. But what do you do when the trauma happens after you've said yes and you're in your story development phase? Sometimes you can't ignore the brand new event that just happened. And so this was definitely outside of our normal path here. But Luisa and I talked about it, and you shared with me a sense of like a need and an urgency that you had to take this moment to address what happened. You couldn't just ignore it and go on as if it didn't happen. And then your alternative was to not do the show at all because you couldn't step out of, this process. And so we chose to dive in, embrace it, and use it as part of our story.
We always say, tell your story from the scar and not the wound. And a lot of that is because we want to be gentle and careful with the speakers who are being so brave to do this. How do you feel now? Are you happy with that choice?
You know what? I am. I am happy with that choice. And the reason why I am is it's actually a multitude of reasons. I'm proud that I was able to do it, first and foremost. And I want to say thank you to Jenette for being gentle with me and allowing the story to blossom the way it needed to. So, I appreciated that. And then I also knew I needed to say it because I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I found that out. So it was like, this is too much not to talk about because it's so real. I'm glad I said it because other people may not sit back. Because how are you going to go to your partner and say, hey, you, I love you, I'm with you, we ride or die, but I'm crumbling over here. And it's so easy to want to not do that because you want to protect your partner. But I knew I had to say it. So I'm glad I said it for myself. I said I'm glad I said it for others. And I hope that one day when my youngest daughter is older and my grandchildren are older, they'll be able to find that and they'll be able to see a glimpse of who I am. If nothing else, what I've learned since the passing of my ex is that I'm telling the stories. I'm telling the stories. When my children call me and they are going through their struggles and they're grieving and, coming up on the anniversary of his death, I am being a truth teller, a water carrier, and I'm telling our family stories because so many people don't talk about the stories and we don't have that history. And I want them to know what it was like, what my life was like, what I went through, where I am now. Where I am now is not where I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was married to their father. So I'm tasking myself, and not having my mother here, I want to be that storyteller, and I want to share. So I had many audiences that I wanted to reach, and I think in just that moment, I was able to do that. And it was captured, it was eloquent, and I chuckled because of the title, because my mother would probably blush if she knew the title. My mother was a lady through and through. So she'd probably be like, oh, my gosh, you're up there. Sorry about I call bullshit. But you know what? One thing my mother said to me was the last thing she said to me before she transitioned. She looked at me and she said, you're all right with me. So that told me that I can show up authentically. However I am. I am her tattooed child. I am her motorcycle riding child. I am all the things. And she saw in me that little piece of like, hey, that's something I would have liked to have done. And when she said I was all right with her, I knew I could go on with the rest of my life. And so I said, I'm going to speak up when I'm asked to. I'm going to even speak up when I'm not asked to. Because too many times we are silent. And I refuse to be silenced any longer.
Luisa, you couldn't have done it any other way. What a fortunate opportunity. The way you just described that, it was almost like That's What She Said gave you a time-stamped moment, opportunity to record, this is where I am in this moment of time, as like a time capsule for you to have in the future and for you to share it with your loved ones. I love how you express that. And that's a beautiful way to look at what we create. And the fortunate thing that we have technology to record these moments, because She Said is so powerful and magical in the moment, but thanks to technology, we can relive those moments. And so I think you're going to cherish this for many years to come. And now you get to cherish your episode of the She Said Project podcast, which we're so grateful that you shared your time with us today.
Yes, and I am so grateful for you having me here. I'm grateful for this platform for women. I am grateful that, we have these opportunities and we're working with teens, and we're not going to shut up. We're going to keep talking. And we're going to keep taking over each community, and we're going to create spaces for these women to be able to tell their stories, because it's so powerful. It's so needed. It's historical. It's current. It's relevant. But one thing we can say is that no matter what, it has to be done. And the work is being done, and it's being done beautifully, and it's being shared nationwide.
Okay, did Jenette just put you on our payroll?
She read the script I gave her perfectly. I wrote that word for word earlier today.
Is this how we introduce our new marketing colleague?
So, yes, Luis is our new PR person.
You just took everything out of our hearts that we would hope someone would feel, and then you just put it into words.
And we are just getting started. I know we've been at this for more than 10 years now, but it does sometimes feel like we're just getting started. And so thank you for validating all that we do and hope to do with That's What She Said and the story sharing platform. So I want to thank our partners, Illinois Public Media, and our sponsors, Sterling Wealth Management, Carl and Health Alliance, our friends who make the She Said Project podcast possible, and our listeners, and of course, the women who show up like Luisa Gomez. Thank you for showing up. You are the epitome of class and beauty and power, and I just admire you so much.
Yep, you're all right with
me. Well, you know what? I know how we can add the bullshit in. I will go ahead and say it for you.
Oh, go ahead.
Any woman that has something to say, and you need to say it out loud, and someone tells you no, it's bullshit.
Call bullshit, ladies.
Woo! And that's a wrap.
Over and out.
Thank you for listening to the She Said Project podcast in partnership with Illinois Public Media. All materials contained in the podcast are the exclusive property of the She Said Project and That's What She Said LLC. For more information on our live shows, go to shesaidproject.com. This podcast was made possible with support from Carl and Health Alliance and presented by Sterling Wealth Management, empowering women to live their best lives.